Please be seated. When I was a kid, many years ago, I purchased daffodil and gladiola bulbs from a friend who was a Girl Scout. I had the grand plan to plant them in our yard. When I told my mom and dad what I wanted to do, my dad gave me, I believe, a Sunset magazine to read about planting bulbs. See, I grew up in a warm part of Southern California, outside of Los Angeles, by the name of Duarte. We were never guaranteed to have enough of a frost each winter for bulbs to thrive in the spring. And I read in Sunset magazine that for certain types of bulbs, you had to chill them in a refrigerator. Being the youngest of four boys, was with my oldest brother, only 5 years older than me, convincing my mom that that was a good idea when the refrigerator that we had was way too small as it was. But I did convince her. And when it came time to plant the bulbs, I went back to Sunset magazine and followed their instructions, or so I thought. After 1 month, the bulbs I planted showed no sign of life. They hadn't sprouted. So I asked my dad, and he asked me, "Did you follow the instructions?" "Yes, I did," indignantly. I replied. He asked me a very simple question. "Which direction did you plant the bulbs?" Again, indignant, I said, "I put them in the ground." "What do you mean by which direction?" Lo and behold, my dad dug up the bulbs, and they had sprouted, but in the wrong direction. They were going down. And I did not realize that I needed to ensure that that part of the bulb where the roots grow were facing downward, and the pointy tip, where the gladiolas sprung out of, had to be pointing upwards. A very simple mistake that I've never made again. The apostles seem to ask Jesus for something that appears to be simple when you take in all the factors of the time. They wanted an increase in faith. This request was made after hearing and seeing and being with Jesus when he talked about an extended hospitality, welcoming and helping the stranger, and visiting prisoners, seeking lost sheep, and sharing parables about the prodigal son, the rich man, and Lazarus, as well as the consequences of causing another to sin. Combined with all of this, they remembered Jesus questioning their faith by saying, "You have so little faith," and asking, "Where is your faith?" when they were on a stormy sea. So of course, they asked to be given a little more faith since they wanted to succeed at everything Jesus was doing and to be good followers. But the Lord replied, "If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you." With only the tiniest bit of faith, Jesus says that faith the size of a mustard seed can accomplish the impossible, such as repositioning daffodil and gladiola bulbs that were planted upside down by a 10-year-old who thought that they would never sprout and bloom. Many of us question whether we have enough or the correct type of faith. Face it, we live in a world and in a time that seems to be spinning out of control. I make the same mistake when I go home at night to make dinner as I turn on the TV and watch the news. And when I listen to the news, more often than not, I am saddened and sometimes physically nauseated by what I hear. It's almost nightly we hear of another mass shooting and innocents are killed. Immigrants are being rounded up like livestock for nothing more than wanting to make a living and provide for their families. And to be very frank, Washington, D.C. is a hot mess. I wonder sometimes if I had more faith that all of this would not make me so sad and nauseated at times. The disciples probably felt as overwhelmed as we do today. But we have to remind ourselves every day when we're discouraged that yes, people are being healed from life-threatening diseases through science, research, and the care of dedicated medical professionals. Yes, through the efforts of church communities and civic organizations, we are feeding and housing people. And we welcome the stranger by rising up and speaking out for those who have come to our shores in search of a better life. Perhaps the message of the gospel today, Jesus is suggesting that you do not need more faith. Or if you are in doubt and questioning your faith, rather, you already have enough faith. How often do we hear the mantra, with all the challenges facing us as a church, we need more resources, more money, more people in the pews. We need more of everything before we can truly do what Jesus calls us to do. But I challenge each of us to listen closely to what Jesus tells the disciples this morning. Jesus says you do not need to increase your faith. You need the tiniest bit of faith imaginable. A grain of mustard seeds worth of faith can empower you to do great things. Unless you have no faith, you already have enough faith. What you have is sufficient. In the Book of Common Prayer, an outline of our faith, which we frequently refer to as the Catechism, we are to bear witness to Christ wherever we may be, and according to the gifts given us, to carry on Christ's work of reconciliation in the world. This is the definition of lay ministry in the church, where we all begin living out what we were called to do through our baptism. We all have been given gifts and resources. As St. Paul makes clear in his letter to the Corinthians, we do not all have the same gifts, but we all have gifts necessary to do the things Jesus does. In the 14th chapter of the Gospel according to John, we are further told, "Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact, will do greater works than these." Jesus promises us that with the gifts we have been given, we will do greater things than he did. When we use the gifts freely given through grace, it doesn't mean that we will not feel as if we haven't done enough or that we do not have enough to give. Jesus calls us to use our gifts, and it is only our duty to do these things that Jesus calls us to do. Since we are filled with the love of God and the Spirit of God, created in God's own generous and giving image, we will always want to do more for God's sake and for our neighbors. The good news this morning is that if we trust in what has been given us, trust in what we have to offer, it is more than enough. When we live by Jesus' new commandment to love one another as he loved us, everyone will know that we are his disciples, which we are called to do through our baptism. When we sow this love, we will achieve the love we are called to. It only requires faith as small as a mustard seed. That truly is the good news. The faith that we have is enough to move mountains, heal the sick, multiply loaves to feed the hungry, and to reach out and heal political divisions, which we are so desperately in need of. It only takes the tiniest bit of faith, and God's will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.